Well, this could be a major shakeup in the world of sports. We've got Apple reportedly has plans to buy ESPN and get rights to college football, NBA, NFL, MLB, and more. According to a recent market study, there is a strong possibility that Apple buys ESPN from Disney. Experts believe Apple could be considering purchasing ESPN. Apple would get the rights to NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, NHL, UFC, and the PGA Tour, along with a bunch of other stuff, including the Big 12 and SEC conferences, along with the ACC, because ESPN also has a bunch of the rights to the ACC, and also 2 Super Bowls. Yes. So if you look, everyone talks about the Super Bowls. They're always on Fox, NBC, CBS. Well, under the new TV deal that came out in March of 2021, you can see the future Super Bowls. ESPN and ABC, they've got it in 2026 and 2030. This could be a huge move by Apple, and the question becomes, if you are Apple and you do this, how does the streaming coincide with the cable aspect of it? Because we know Apple TV, they were talking about possibly buying the Pac-12 when it was still together, around $25 million per team, and then they would possibly up it based on TV subscriptions. Would you offer something if you are Apple and you take over the rights to ESPN? Would you offer something through the iPhone? I'm guessing that would enable people to watch tons of live sports wherever they're at through some type of streaming. If there's anyone that can do it, it's going to be Apple, because we've had so many issues when it comes to streaming. You're talking about ordering 50 different things. You got to have Peacock. You got to have this. You got to have that. You got to pay $10 a month for 12 different things just to stream the correct stuff. You got to have 40 different packages. Well, if Apple gets this done, it could get a lot easier, but also it could become a little bit worse, because inevitably Apple is going to want you to buy their subscription, their monthly subscription, so you're going to get possibly big time games in the NBA, in NFL, Monday Night Football, possibly being streaming. I don't think they're going to do it with the really huge games, but that's definitely something we have to look out for. I'm going to just look at some of these tweets. Despite its trillion-dollar war chest, Apple has traditionally been loath to make acquisitions, but ESPN may prove to be an irresistible target. One Wall Street analyst believes Apple buying ESPN is a matter of when, not if. According to Fortune, the prediction is that considering inflation and ESPN's current value, Apple should offer between $50 and $60 billion for the network. If we go to a regular inflation calculator, Disney paid $38 billion for the company. If they were offered $50 billion, they would still make a massive profit from it. Currently, Disney is not going through a great moment with the writers and actors strike. They could definitely use much of this money to reach a settlement and get that massive weight off their shoulders. ESPN as a company has been suffering layoffs for years, and Apple has the infrastructure to prevent this. In case that Apple makes an offer, should Disney consider it? And then the article later mentions that Apple is very choosy when it comes to its acquisitions. It's been nearly a decade since its biggest deal, the $3 billion purchase of Beats in 2014. Apple has the capital reserves of a small country, but it's a big leap to the upwards of $50 billion for ESPN. And then there's ESPN's long-running role as Disney's cash cow. Over the decades, Disney's chief executive Bob Iger has used the billions generated by ESPN affiliates and advertising fees to finance his acquisitions. And I just think when it comes down to it, the dam is going to have to break. If you're a young person affording cable, $130, $150 a month, probably maybe not even getting Fox. I mean, we've heard of these disputes going on. Right now, DirecTV has one where the DirecTV, customers can't even watch Fox right now with the NFL coming up, with college football coming up. So cable has a number of issues. Right now, it's just too expensive for a lot of young people who live in apartments or even living in their first home. They don't want to fork over the $150, so they would rather go to streaming. But then it's like, which streaming service do you get? Will they have all the games? How does it work? It's honestly a big issue if you are an NFL fan, because even if you decide to go the streaming route, it's hard because they don't have local channels. So if you want to watch your home team on CBS, you would have to get a specific package. It's very difficult to understand and explain. Could Apple facilitate an end to all of this and make it a lot easier? Personally, I am not a fan of streaming live sports until they somehow fix the buffering, the delays, the issues when it comes to bars. I would imagine if Apple acquired ESPN, there would be some big time games that would be streaming exclusive. Now, we have seen a model kind of similar, a baby model similar to this, where you'll have a college football game like a Notre Dame game with it both being on Peacock and NBC. So while it's on streaming with Peacock, it's also on regular cable TV with NBC. The issue is, and this is what they've started to do with, the Big Ten deal going into place, there's a few games that you will only have exclusive to Peacock. And obviously, if you have a game on both NBC and Peacock, or like if ESPN, if Apple buys ESPN, they would have the game, let's just say, for example, Alabama-Auburn, it would be on both ESPN and Apple TV. No one would watch Apple TV. Well, if you only made it on Apple TV, which would be really bad, by the way, you could potentially get a lot more people to pay for a subscription. It is important to understand Apple has been very timid in making big time purchases, and this would be $50 or $60 billion acquiring ESPN from Disney. Disney possibly tempted to sell. They're dealing with a lot of losses. They've had a lot of movies that have completely flopped, and they've got that writer's strike going on right now. So what I can say is this is certainly interesting. I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't like this. A lot of people would like it. Streaming live sports, we all know it's very brutal, but it does seem like streaming, based on the amount of cord cutting that we've seen, especially from young people, is the future. And you can see Apple could have landed the rights to the struggling Pac-12 for basically nothing. I mean, their final offer was like $25 million per school, or like $23 million, something like that. NFL's Sunday ticket rights were ultimately landed by Google's YouTube TV. Is that true? Is Sunday Ticket going to be streaming exclusive now? Google's YouTube TV, wow. Well, I mean, listen, when you watch a live stream on YouTube, it's actually really good most of the time. I find that's an interesting thing with YouTube. When you compare it to other streaming services, you get virtually no lag. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I will say, when you live stream, when you watch someone's live stream on YouTube, and even compared to like Twitch or something, the media player is so much better. And then you can see it says Apple's MLB streaming deal is just for Friday night games. And yes, the MLB streaming deal is a complete well, I don't want to say that, but I do know a lot of MLB fans do not like those Friday games. They just think they're bad. The announcers are horrible. I'm surprised Apple really struggled with that, but they do have Ultra HD. I know that as well. Cord cutting is slashing ESPN's footprint to 73 million homes from a high of 100 million. It might be time to pivot and possibly embrace streaming. So we will have to see how this ends up developing, and if Apple actually goes through and looks at possibly buying ESPN. But right now I would say it is just a rumor. I do think, based on the trend we're seeing, something's going to have to be done, although it's very complicated because ESPN just got the SEC on a huge TV deal. They have the ACC through 2036, assuming the ACC stays together, and they have the Big 12 through like 2033. So they've got a lot in terms of college football. They're going to be having 2 Super Bowls, which I'm sure obviously are going to be on cable television. You're not, imagine putting the Super Bowl streaming only. Maybe that's the future, but what I would expect them to do if Apple TV gets this, you're going to get a lot more this would be a bad scenario, I would say. If you are a normal, just SEC fan, LSU, Alabama, whatever, you're going to get a ton more streaming exclusive games. It's not a big deal when it's on both NBC and Peacock. It's not a big deal when it's on both ESPN and Apple TV Plus. But it is a big deal when it's exclusively on Apple TV Plus. And obviously, if they want to make money, they're going to have to do exclusives, just like Peacock is doing with the Big Ten in terms of football. You're getting Big Ten games exclusively streaming only. Now, I guess there are a few workarounds to that, but overall, it is still annoying. You cannot turn on a normal TV and just, find it if you have DirecTV or AT&T Uverse, whatever you have. It is not possible because it's through streaming. So we will have to see what happens when it comes to this. But guys, so it'll be interesting to follow this developing story. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.